Off.
Hey,
All
we're
right,
talking hockey here.
Hey, well, you know what? It's time to talk. It's time to talk drones now. So,
Not drones, multi-rotor aircraft.
and fixed wing.
Hey
Yeah,
now, we
those
got to
two.
include everything.
Exactly.
I'm cool with fixed wing.
They're whirly gigs, you guys. Come on.
The whirly gigs. Yes.
Yeah.
Time to talk about whirly gigs. All right. So on the topics for tonight. First up is going to be, if we had the ability to assist first responders, would you help? And this comes in multiple forms, whether it's assisting search and rescue efforts in areas like floods, being able to help them kind of locate disaster areas, like, for instance, the recent fire in Paris, France, at the Notre Dame, stuff like that could help first responders pinpoint incidents, find people, that kind of stuff. Would you be willing to help?
Yep. Fact is, that's why I have a thermal camera drone on the way, so I can volunteer for search and rescue for the local police department.
That's epic.
Which one? Is it the new Parrot one or something else?
No, it's the X Dynamics Evolve.
Drop a link for it when you get a second. Interesting.
Please and thank you.
I did see that Parrot's got a relatively inexpensive dual camera with a FLIR attached to it that
but
looks
it has
pretty cool.
Turn around and back up its butt for it.
Oh, really?
Oh, no.
Why do you say that?
Need a 107 for volunteer. Yes, you do need a 107 for volunteer for that type of stuff.
Even for public service.
For public service, yes.
Hmm.
But you can volunteer footage to, like, your news crew, local news, without a 107.
That seems like the opposite way that should go. But
You're doggone right, I believe that too, but that's the way it is. And there is the X Dynamics website.
So that should be on our list of things we need to get changed, is that if you volunteer for your local government, that maybe you wouldn't need a Part 107.
Yeah, I mean, you're offering your services free of charge, and
Right.
for the benefit of humankind. Absolutely.
right, you help out a search and rescue, and you need a commercial license. I don't quite get it.
I mean, go ahead.
I believe it's the intent of the flight. I mean, if you're doing it just to help, I think that might be, unfortunately, an undefined area, but you're not making any money on it. It's, you know what I mean?
I guess that's what I
get some crap.
And you, I mean, having been in the first responder role for a long time, they're not in any way going to accept your help unless you agree that you're not going to also use any footage that you would gain for commercial purposes. It just kind of goes with it. It's like, it got to the point where we had to sign it. You had to sign an agreement when camera phones and everything got popular, that you had to leave your camera and you had to leave your phone in your pocket when you were on scenes. No taking pictures, no video, no nothing of accident scenes and all that kind of stuff. And there's a whole bunch of reasons behind that, but the same reasons would apply to assisting in a search and rescue, as an example, or fire, or whatever it is.
I would bet in this case the Part 107 is the only level or only barrier they have to getting people to prove that they actually have some training or know something about what they're doing. So that's why they say you have to have that in order to fly safely and to do volunteer work.
I agree. And I think that's the catch-all. And I think that that's where we can step in and say, hey, but we have this training program and our people have gone through this. You can verify with us. This is everything that they know and understand and are proficient in. Kind of leave us be, maybe, hopefully.
Well, and the funny thing is the exact next question that I was gonna bring to you guys was, should there be certification or qualification in order to do this? And I would agree that
I think
that
so.
part 107 is that you know what you're doing. You're not going to harm anybody by intentionally harm anybody by participating in search and rescue efforts, and the rules and yada yada yada, and we're not going to be rescuing you
No.
along with everybody else.
Right.
So I get where that might be a necessity,
Yeah.
but at the same time, is part 107 the right way to go
I think it's
for that kind of
overkill.
qualification?
Yeah, it's overkill a little
I
bit.
think so too.
So I think that we'll be able to put our beautiful heads together and come up with something glorious that is less evasive than the 107.
Need a part
106. That's great. We can call it the 106.5 just because it sounds like a radio station. The 101,
The 411.
right? But I think that we do need to have something, or we should have something that shows our proficiency in X, Y, and Z. It just helps. It helps bolster, our side of things too. We're not just literally flying our whirligigs around. Like we actually kind of know what we're doing. So leave us be, you know?
So now that calls into question, should there be a classification of aircraft that would be more conducive to search and rescue? Now, obviously a freestyle rig or a racing drone, they're only going to stay up in the air for a couple of minutes at a time. But are those good enough to help assist? Should we be looking at a different type of classification for a drone that would be the kind of standard go-to for search and rescue efforts? Is it all just situational dependent? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think there's some beautiful stuff made for those purposes, and I've drooled over many of them. There's just nothing that I, could justify owning myself.
So it's more like a cost barrier there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at what would be in my mind, a really Cadillac rig for search and rescue, or even oversight for for a house fire, and that sort of thing. You're talking about laying out some serious.
Okay, so now, would you, if permitted, an IR FLIR? Yeah, an IR FLIR does. No, I would agree with both you guys. An IR FLIR setup seems to be a big help, especially in situations of fire or flood where you can spot people. An FPV quad, yeah, it would be difficult, but at the same time, would it be better than nothing? If you've got nothing in the air to see from above, to quickly locate survivors in like a flood area. An FPV quad would, in my mind, would be best. Would be better than nothing. Danger environments, yep, that makes sense too. So, or tight spaces, that kind of thing. Anybody disagree?
Well, I mean, the military is using very small FPV for short scouting missions and things like that, just because of the portability, ease of deployment.
Yep.
If it's a whole lot safer to toss a hand size aircraft up into the air and get a look at what's on the other side of a ridge than it is to draw the short straw and have to poke your head over there to see.
Let's see. What kind of situation should we be ready to assist with? So think about, I would think about situations like search and rescue. Should we be offering assistance with other like people who are performing illegal flights? You know, where would we draw the line of what we would be willing to assist with?
Well, what do you mean illegal flights? Like how illegal? Because I
Like,
have
let's
like
talk. No,
yeah.
what I'm talking about is like situations like the supposed Gatwick incident
Oh, right,
and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
stuff like that.
I thought you meant like us assist with someone doing something illegal, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not
No,
totally
no, no,
down
no,
with
no,
that.
no. That was probably worded wrong, but
Yeah, I'm not
basically
on board with
mitigating the
that.
situation.
That's the first time I've ever disagreed with you. That was great.
Miata, yes, bounty hunting. Let's call it bounty hunting. There you
Oh,
go.
dude, the money would roll in. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of touchy. I think that we probably should do a little statistics. Like, we should look and see what types of awkward rescue situations there are. And if we can effectively help in one of those, then that could be part of our package to kind of woo municipalities.
We
Yeah,
need a
I
long
was gonna
range tiny whoop.
Oh,
Long
dude.
range tiny whoop. There you go.
Well, the Ninja, or the the new black one that Jesse P just came out with. I think it's a Ninja. Isn't that what it's called?
Nano.
The Nano. Yeah, I knew it started. Yeah, that guy. Ooh.
Alien
I got a
Warfare
2-inch I can get in a
Crossfire.
pretty small hole.
See,
Yep.
like we have the capabilities. It's just the length of time is where we're kind of screwed up because we can get anywhere.
Well, you also got to keep in mind that a lot of FPVers are focused on performance. So, you know, our motors are drawing maximum amps out of our system, whereas, you know, I recently got some of the Joshua Bardwell motors from Lumineer, and you pair those with low pitch props, I'm getting 5 and 6 minute flight times on a 600-gram quad. You know, and to me that's relatively unheard of on a 1300 battery.
Right.
So, you know, it's basically you'd be building for efficiency over everything. Now, mind you, on low pitch props, you know, I'm not going to be doing, you know, massive aerial tricks or anything like that, acrobatics, but it gets me from A to B and allows me to fly for long periods of time, which is basically what a search and rescue quad should be in my mind. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you've got to fly slow to get, especially with an IR camera, you've got to fly pretty slow to get
Any usable image, right?
yeah, to get a usable image, especially search and rescue. I mean, they have a huge advantage when they've got a great big, you know, multi $10 gazillion one tacked on the bottom of a
Helicopter.
multi-billion-dollar helicopter, but our cost to get in the air is significantly less, you know.
Absolutely.
And the deployment time, you know,
Right.
is
significantly less.
Justin
Yeah.
mentioned today that whatever quad is decided upon, like collectively, like we come together, everybody has their build. It's done the exact same way every time. You know that this works. Don't change it, don't tweak it, because this is what we need. You know, everybody's going to have to be on the same page with that, because if we have a certain rig approved, kind of collectively by municipalities that accept us, we all kind of have to stick to that, you know?
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
And then we'll know. And then we can also say, and then like 100%, we back this person up because this is what they're going to do. This is the training that they have, and this is the equipment that they have. We support
It's
that.
basically, you know, certified equipment.
yeah,
Absolutely.
known package, known skills, all that kind of stuff.
soft down to the software. Yeah, and IT would call that a recipe with the hardware plus the software down to PTFs. In terms of drawing the line on would I help law enforcement, you know, do this or not, but not that, I think it would come down to personal relationships. I mean, I think what we're encouraging and what the LEAP program that the FAA is articulating is, you know, get to know the people in your area. And so you want to establish a relationship. And so I think, you know, if you don't want to do scenes, car accidents, then you know you're not going to be working with state troopers. Or if you're if you're into search and rescue, then you'll certainly go after DEC, DEP, at least in the Northeast. Would that make sense in terms of yeah, so I think the what would be the I'm just struggling with is there a moral or ethical line that we would draw, and it's like, well, I don't think so. I don't think that'd be appropriate. More along the lines of each individual working with the individual law enforcement organization.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. So, okay, let's see.
Any dissent or any disagreement with that?
Not at all. I think that we all need to be on the same page, and we need to be firm and
Yeah, and
absolute.
and if it's something you don't want to do, then you don't approach
do it.
that
Right.
that organization.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a couple, probably, I don't know, a year ago, I was talking with some of the Phoenix PD guys regarding transitioning to drones and that kind of thing, and the kind of the same cost benefit analysis that we touched on a little earlier. It's faster to deploy. It doesn't cost $1 million. For the price of one standard helicopter, you could get God knows how many drones. But when it comes to stuff like Volatronics said not for investigative uses, when it comes to that kind of thing, the police would at that point probably be operating their own rigs for that type of use. I don't think that we would get involved in a lot of that. It would be more benefit of humanity kind of thing. So sticking to in my mind, I'm thinking floods, fires, wildfires, and whatnot, and
natural and man-made disasters.
Exactly, and then maybe stepping to zombies. There you go, zombie tracking. Hey, although FLIR probably won't be as effective between them and the White Walkers, we'd probably be screwed. But
It's
Your
the
nerd
text
is
code
showing.
things too.
my nerd is showing, in case anybody didn't know.
Right.
You're in good company, my friend.
I know, right? But beyond just benefit of humanity would be maybe helping assist with mitigating people flying their drones where they shouldn't be, even if it's more so on instead of using a drone to take down a drone, maybe it's more of a consultation kind of side of things, and talking with law enforcement about the best ways to locate that subject, to bring that drone down, that kind of thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a one-to-one kind of situation where one drone's taking down another drone. So
if we could segue from there back to the to Gonzo's idea about keep the hardware standard. I keep thinking about under 250 grams as the magic number, not only for the United States but around the world. So if we could optimize the efficiency of an under 250 gram quad, that would be, and then so it's it's probably going to be a 2-incher in that magnitude. It can be fast, it can be tiny, and if we get the the flight times up, and I've got a little driblet that's 2.5 or 2 inches, and it's $270. So it's under sub $300, under 250 grams by a lot, and so it could we could improve the efficiency of that, or so to standardize, so that that becomes a law enforcement assistant, that this little tiny thing to go help. And it also has the benefit of not being a category 1 or category 2 per the FAA, so it can be flown over people or at night without a waiver, without having to worry about the kinetic energy thresholds if you're flying 107.
And talk about quick to deploy. I have mine almost done. I can't wait to get it in the air. I like the little aircraft, and yeah, it's. I mean, I've got an Acrobat, and that thing is,
Yeah, the
depending on how
Acrobat. I've also
on how you build it. I mean, that thing is just. I can literally walk out. I've got a farm field behind the house. I can literally walk out the back door and kind of toss it in the air and it flies. It's just so easy.
Yes.
So easy.
If you're going to talk under 250 pounds, now we're going to need two different.
That was gram. That was grams,
yeah,
not
sorry.
pounds.
Yeah, I misspoke. If we're going to keep under 250 grams, there's no way going to carry a FLIR with under 250 grams.
Agreed.
So we're going to have to now think about, we have dedicated tool, like a dedicated tool for this and then for that.
Yeah,
Like,
and one of the things that my next build is going to be a driblet with a RunCam mini split, and because I've already got one with and it, gosh, I need to weigh it. It is way under 250, all up weight, including the battery. So I'm sure I can create one that has at least a 1080p video, but that's of course transmitting to, or it's copying over to a micro SD. It's not transmitting high res back to the ground. But I agree with you completely, Matt, that this is purpose design, and that always happens with when you optimize, right? You try to get the most out of something. It's going to be purpose design.
Like for something under 250, it could just be something as easy as a Mobula, and then something over that, you could ditch the GoPro mount to like the Gendrone nutmegs or even a squirt, and that a squirt will definitely carry that much weight if the GoPro's not on it. And those things, if you get them efficient enough, they'll fly 6, 7, 8 minutes. And they're ducted, so if you do fly over people, it's just going to be the blunt force.
Yeah, you'd have the ducks, yeah. Now, question, I don't own a Mobula, and I haven't looked at micro-sized rigs in a while. Are those all plastic, or are they carbon, or?
Yeah, they're all, I believe they're all plastic from what I don't own one either, but I've seen the video quality from them, and it's pretty incredible. So if you have something small and you have to find something real quick, the resolution. Yeah.
They're starting to come out with more carbon and mixed carbon and plastic frames too.
Well, my thought is think about it from a perspective, and somebody mentioned it earlier. Oh, Volatronics mentioned it, throwaway quads. So what if we designed, and again, this is just hypothesis at this point, but what if we designed a 3D printable frame that you can throw your electronics on? The whole thing doesn't cost that much because, you're just printing with filament, so there's no upcharge on that. You're paying for, your electronics, and you throw it in the air.
Yeah.
As long as it's sound, I think that's actually a pretty rad idea.
That's something that we could talk to Andy about, Andy Shen, because I know the nutmeg and the squirt, going back to that, I have a fully 3D printed nutmeg, and it's
awesome.
It's not the lightest thing in the world, but it doesn't flex, it doesn't do anything. If you break something, you just 3D print the part again. It's like you're saying, it's ease of use. It's sustainable for a super low cost, so it makes.
Yeah, that would be my thought. And for the most part, it doesn't necessarily have rigid or solid in terms of flex. It just, because you're not putting high performance through it. Again, you're basing it off efficiency. So you build it light, you build it cheap, and then you throw on quality, decently quality electronics, and you call it a day. But just a thought. I'm just,
Yeah, this whole discussion is really interesting from the perspective of what what Gonzo was saying and standardize the safety exam. It could be definitely worth. I mean, because this is this is the device and the people that we would the face to first responders and law enforcement. To me, it's so there's not necessarily a branding behind it, but a reputation that we would want to establish, and I think that could be very positive to people, so that you get into it and you want to help out in your community, and you pick up this is proven nationally by this organization. It works, it's trusted, it's more reliable than a 737 Max.
Right.
That is a joke.
Ba-dunch.
Sorry, my mic was off. My mic was off for the laugh, but I was laughing.
Chapel, we need a rim shot.
Asleep at the wheel, I guess.
Oh,
What the
fail.
hell, man?
You got all this great equipment and you're failing.
I was looking something up to throw in there. Everybody's talking about a light quad, and I've got one that's 189 grams with battery and
With
FPV.
battery. Dang, that's excellent.
Total scratch build, though.
Wow. It's a good benchmark. Good number.
I know those
Yeah.
toothpick builds are probably less than 100 grams. Although maybe they're closer to 100 if you add something like a split to it. I forget.
Interesting.
They don't get a whole lot heavier. I didn't run the mini split. I've got the whatever Fox years version of that is. They call it
Oh yeah, what is that?
super a mix. That's it. Fox year mix.
Clever.
Yeah, right. And that's extremely light. The camera is smaller, and it's a single board. So it was the lightest one that I could find.
Nice.
Because I was just kind of looking to see how light I could get my my brat, and I think I'll try that at least at some point in that driblet frame too, to see how light it gets.
Cool.
And the video is great. Quality.
So Josh, I took you way off topic. But this seemed like a really interesting segue.
No, you're fine. I think it's all awesome stuff. In my mind, there's no such thing as off topic. If we're getting down into the nitty gritty of this stuff, I mean, that's the stuff I love. So
we're talking whirly gigs here.
That's it.
Exactly. Plus, you're giving me a chance to type my notes, so all good.
Yeah, we got Matt off the Bruins, so we're okay.
It's funny. Let's see. So now, the next part is should there be different guidelines from our already existing safety guidelines to helping first responders, and what in your guys' mind should that look like?
I think one of the things that comes up right away in certain circumstances, if you're if you're providing some overhead view at a house fire or some other sort of a structure fire where that information is time sensitive, fire department can really use that for a number of different reasons. You're going to be flying over the top of them. There's kind of there's no way around that. They're going to keep working, but they're also all going to have helmets on.
Right.
And so that's one example of that. Same thing with search and rescue. You're probably going to be working in conjunction with people on the ground. So I think those things might be areas where there'd be a cross.
One of the things I was thinking of in areas you've been have deep experience in is protocols along the lines of safety and chain of command, which would be different if you're in a natural or man-made disaster and they're either first responders or law enforcement. That we would want to provide some guidance to FPV pilots that you have to listen and take orders.
Yeah, there's a protocol that I'm sure that if you get involved with any kind of an organization, I'm sure they would want you to get a certification at some level. It's called NIMS, National Incident Management System, and what it is like it's a post 9/11 thing where certain things kind of turned into goat rodeos because they didn't have you had so much interdepartmental operations going on there, and everybody kind of had their own command structure, their own guidelines, and so they developed this nationalized program so that you can take people from where I live and send me to a disaster in Texas, and we're going to be speaking the same language in terms of command and even logistics and support and all that sort of thing. And so it just so happens that I hold um, the 900 series certification, which lets me qualifies me to be an incident commander. So I've been to the top level and actually run a couple of these things. Um, and so to interact in one of those situations, they're going to want people to have at least the basis of the 100 or 200 series certification, just so that the lingo on the radio, how the communication structure is, when they talk about a certain tactical name for someone who has X responsibilities, you're going to know who that is. If you
So
need something, you're going to know who to.
So perfect. It sounds like we could reference that as if you're going to be working in assistance to locally under the LEAP program, we would point to NIMS certification this
Yep.
level, and then it sounds like our own training could be specific to FPV, and it might not have to be. We might not have to create a separate module for local law enforcement or first responding.
Yeah, all you'd be doing is adding a section. So I mean, typically at a disaster, you've got an overall command, and then depending on how big it is, you're going to have a search and rescue command. You may have multiple search and rescues. If all this stuff it's like it starts out really tiny, and then based off a need, the system just grows, and you get more layers of operational command and communications and that sort of thing. But everybody's got a defined role.
Yeah, everybody's
Mhm.
doing different things, but they all kind of fit within the structure.
Yeah, there's a communication structure that falls into place and is very expandable. Whoever put it together did an excellent job. And there's been some revisions, but really, I mean, I was in on it, on the ground floor when they first came out with it, and the basic structure that they started out with is the same thing that we're using. If something happens tomorrow, it's very similar to. There haven't been a lot of changes. Whoever
Awesome.
whoever did it did a nice job.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you.
Another thing that we're going to need is we're going to need like pre-disaster. That's that everybody. If we're going to keep everything
The
like
operative
in
word
line and
clipped on me, Matt. We're
Yeah, it
going to
did me
need
too.
we're going to need and I think the word was disaster. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, or pre-situation, I guess would be better.
Say more. Say more. What's your thought?
Just training. It's any kind of first responder has training before they run into a fire or pull somebody over on the side of the
Absolutely.
road. Or if we're all going to be on the same page, then the people that are going to be working with the other first responders need to actually meet them and tell them, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and then
And
do it.
practice.
Yeah, way nobody. Because I mean, some people might get freaked out. They might be able to run into a burning building or a shootout, but they hear a drone 5 feet over their head or a multi-whirligig. They might get freaked out. You never know, because it's
Right.
something that they might have never been around. So that might take them off their game a little bit, and that's dangerous too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good
Agreed.
thoughts.
I just posted the FEMA link training. The classes are free. You have to register, obviously, but I think that'll be a good start for us to look at just where we need to begin as far as disaster management and how we can help.
There's a just shy of a crap ton of, that's the technical term, of information on that website. As far as how the system works, and all all of the lower level trainings are online. They're very simple, and there's wonderful pocket guide for those of us whose memories are failing, that you can refer to during the middle of this, because there's especially when you get to the I'm in command situation, there's like a million things to try to remember at the same time, and especially in the beginning before you get all the people in place. I'm having a flashback to the first one of these. I had to run, and it took me like 3 days to have my adrenaline come back to normal.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. I mean, just being there in the first would, put my adrenaline off. But or finding somebody that needs help, or any of those situations,
We'll put it this way: we transported 135 patients in a little over 45 minutes.
Oh my word!
Jeez.
So,
yeah, I can imagine.
Hey,
night.
Dean, one of the things that I worry about is, we've got a gung ho FPV pilot. They want to help, and you take 3 of them, and one is awesome in a crisis, and the other is a great pilot, but they just melt and fold in a crisis. They just lock up or freeze. What's your thinking with respect to how do we try to is it as Matt was suggesting, which I love the idea, that we need to there needs to be some level of training. Okay, we've provided this base guidelines, but you need to go and do a walkthrough with the people you're offering to help. But what's your sense in terms of how do you identify and call the folks who are just and it's not a bad thing. It's just some people just panic.
The reality is responding to any kind of a disaster is not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see and do and be in the middle of things that it's just not in everybody's wheelhouse. And that's not saying anything bad about anybody. It's not for everyone.
Yep.
And you just have to kind of counsel people towards what they
Where
better,
they can help.
and
Mm-hmm.
and even so when I was supervising large amounts of people in EMS, I knew if we're in one of these situations, which people I can put in what role, and what is somebody that I want to use to shuttle equipment from the station or the firehouse out to the scene, because that's a better thing to have them do than be in the middle of of maybe some other kind of a role, a patient assessment role or something like that. It's just you have to put the right person in the right spot.
Okay.
And some people need to stay home.
So that begs the question, and I was just thinking about this while you guys were talking about that. Would it be wise to develop a national network of people who would respond to these, or have a dedicated team that has all the training and whatnot that we would send to these crises?
I think response teams, I think organizing and response teams are the best way to handle these situations. It's so then you have people who have put in the time to get the training, to go to the practices, and I think for the most part, people will kind of self-weed themselves out of it once they see and they get the pressure of a couple of drills under their belt. this is not something that's going to do well. And drills, and on every level with police, fire, EMS, search and rescue teams, they're all scored. And usually the self-scoring is the toughest part. There's always a debrief, and people realize pretty quick this is not. I'm not. I'm not the guy to have to be put into one of these roles, and so people tend to migrate away from the scenarios.
Okay.
I've had paramedic students make it all the way to clinicals, and then find out I picked the wrong thing to go to school for.
Yeah. I had a friend who did that for the firefighters.
Yeah, and I mean it happens, and
Yep. There's no shame in it. It's just
no, it isn't.
Not your bag.
Yeah, and that's perfectly okay, because there's all kinds of jobs that I'm not cut out to do. So, I mean, yeah.
What? Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a thought of. I'm struggling for the names of the two organizations. I think it's RACES and the Ham Radio Emergency.
Aries and RACES.
Yep, I got it. So I happily, as a general licensed ham radio operator, I should remember those two names. But I was thinking that those folks are almost as geeky as we are, and
if not worse,
so they're if not worse. So there's
speaking for myself.
Yeah, there's a natural affinity of geekiness, and there's an entire structure, and so it may be a useful loose alliance. And so in terms of and these are normally run at a county level in one of the organizations. I think that's RACES, and the other is affiliated with the government, if I've got that right, Dean.
Neither one. Both have some affiliation with the government in that they're in. They're FCC endorsed to a certain degree.
Right.
It's Amateur Radio Emergency Services, ARES, and RACES. I couldn't tell you what that acronym is. I was glad I got the first one. EMS is like laden with acronyms. There's an acronym to remember the acronyms. I mean, it's just terrible. So
my point is that might be an interesting symbiotic relationship for us. Because
absolutely.
It's a structure. There's a national network. They are absolutely tied in with natural disasters, and they are if there's a communications blackout in an area, these people are they're all
they're there to step up.
They're there, and they practice, and so adding FPV flights to the they do things like track down they do hunts, so they track down find the transmitter, things like that.
Yeah, we do that here. I mean, literally in the county I live, our repeater. Are you guys laughing at the hot dog thing?
We are.
Okay.
It's not a pizza, but I'm not sure what if Stephanie's laughing at us or what she's. So
I had all kinds of thoughts that I thought I better just ignore. So
exactly. So for the repeaters.
Yeah.
So the sheriff's department, kind of in exchange for us being their standby communications, houses our repeater on their towers, and we have operating stations at the hospitals. Literally where we have a desk and a power supply and a radio there, and all this stuff is there, and all you have to do is show up. But literally the area is set up, and they all realize that if communications go down without this group of geeky guys who shows up with all these goofy letters that they have on their hats and jackets and you know, gloves and T-shirts and whatever. You know, without us, they have no way of communicating with each other. So
Right.
they've embraced our existence
Mm-hmm.
and our geekiness.
Excellent. Yeah. So that might be a nice way, a good entree into this whole community.
Yeah, and it's you know, it's a neat thing because you know, you're on their good side and you get that chance to do the community service. You get the little blurb in the newspaper every time you do a drill, and you know, like the newspaper will come and take a couple pictures, and sometimes you know, depending on the news day, even the TV has, you know, TV stations have come out and said, oh yeah, they're out there practicing,
their
you know.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, this is the thing that
Yeah.
that happens, you know.
And they have they can help get our FCC ham radio operator's license that we need to legally operate the video.
True
Yeah.
story.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And some of us the radios that we use too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I'm on Radio Free Europe. I'm okay with that. It's legal to have what I have.
Yeah.
So, other thoughts on national network or dedicated teams?
Yeah.
I think that we have enough fire rescue and EMS people that fly already in various states that can probably help us coordinate this nationwide.
Okay.
That I think that already have kind of proven their merit as far as rescue goes.
Yep.
Because emergency management is not for everybody at all, and I totally agree with that. And there will be times that you might have been in emergency management services for a while, and you get on scene, whatever, and that one is the one that kind of clicks. So you never know. It's very high stress. So if we start with the ones that already have fire rescue EMS training or background,
Yeah, it's a great thought.
or like military that have EMS background, those are the people that will flourish and will love it, because there is absolutely nothing on the planet that can give you the adrenaline rush that a rescue adrenaline rush gives you. And it's a very unique thing that not everybody can handle. So I think that's probably where we should start as far as coordination goes. It's with our EMS, like Icky. I mean, he's a firefighter, so like he would be a really good asset to pick his brain a little bit as well.
Good.
I think that's where we should start is fire EMS rescue background first, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Because they're already vetted basically as far on scene. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I like it.
Josh.
I know.
That's freaky. I was having the same thought. Yeah. It's almost like a sound effect keyboard. You know?
It's at least not a buckle spring keyboard. You know,
yeah, no, it's quieter than my last one, so y'all should feel grateful.
Yeah, every day.
All right, so honestly, that was a great conversation. I really enjoyed that one, and I think there's a ton of great information that you guys provided. I appreciate it. Dave, do you have anything else?
No, I didn't. Nothing. That was
Dan,
good.
Stephanie?
No, I don't think so, unless there was anything interesting in the news the past week or two.
I missed that. Sorry, I stepped away for a second. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Around the room. Any other topics?
Oh God.
Does it have to be FPV related?
Yeah.
It cannot be the release of the Mueller report.
Okay, look. I do need to call me tomorrow then, Dave.
Which one?
Really? No, I don't have anything else.
Did anybody see what happened at the Red Sox game last week?
Yes.
No.
They did. They did find that it was a juvenile, apparently, and they found him from the last news report I read, and they have. I don't know if they've charged him, but I think they confiscated his equipment at this.
They did nothing.
So
And
this sounds like
at,
a drone at the stadium.
at Fenway,
Okay.
and it was a
went out.
DJI.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I thought they weren't supposed to be able to fly in no-fly zones.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
according to the report I read, that DJI didn't want to comment on that, and they put all the onus back on the operator.
Of course.
Plausible deniability.
No, you can. No, I've got it. I mean, you just flash
Use
another
a different app.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
So, but that's something to be said for geofencing software, if you're not using it correctly. So, at any point, yes, that was the biggest drone story I saw. Although I did see a story where at the Notre Dame, when it was on fire, there was a drone operator that was helping firefighters pinpoint some of the hot spots from above.
Yep,
Yes.
thermal camera.
Yep. So that's some good positive drones in the news kind of story. So,
Didn't help it none though.
well, you know what? To be honest, the damage is a lot less than they were expecting. So,
And that's excellent.
and that, yeah, I mean, I've been there, so I know the awe-inspiring nature of that building and
It's like
whatnot.
all wood.
And it is. It was. I think they were saying
couldn't believe
43
how much.
acres. 43 acres of wood
Holy cow!
in
Yeah,
that
especially
building.
in the upper trellis, the tower, the spire that fell. Yeah, they called it. Didn't they call it the forest or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did.
Oh man.
And so ton of wood that's 800 years old, so nothing but pure fuel. There's no moisture in any of that. And to be
Wonder where the
honest,
hunchback was.
Exactly. I loved it.
He was at the chiropractor.
The bells!
So honestly, I was expecting the walls to cave in. So when I was watching it, but
Yeah, same
Oh,
here.
wait a minute.
I mean,
Isn't the bells in that tower?
no, the bells are in the two towers that received minimal damage. But,
The big stone ones.
yes.
Oh, okay.
And they were saying that if the fire spread up there, that the bells, I think one of them weighs like 25 tons or something like that, that it would have knocked the rest of the building down if it fell. So, yeah, there was some crazy stuff there, and it honestly it brought some flashbacks of 9/11 back for me when I was watching it. It was a little scary, but yeah, well, But at any rate, yeah, so that's some good positive news for drones. Fenway Park, bad news. Bad.
It's like we get one good and like three bad.
Oh, and we should
Flew
and,
two
and
pa-
well,
he
we
flew
should
two
mention.
packs.
Yeah. We
That's
should
awesome.
mention that we did submit comments on the two FAA documents. So we're focusing on things like getting insurance going, but we also found time to read the 250 pages of FAA documentation and make comments on those.
Yep. So last count I saw, there was like 830 submissions for that.
That is so pages.
Yeah. So some of them were interesting. There was one, I don't know if any of you follow Vic Moss on Facebook, but he posted one from a 14-year-old kid that basically said, every time I fly, I have to call 4 airports and get permission. And he's like, I know there's the Lance system, but we can't use it for hobbyists. It needs to be easier to access. It was kind of a good response for something like that. And he's just a hobbyist, this little 14-year-old kid, obviously. But to have to call 4 airports when you step out your front door to fly your drone is it's a little bit overbearing to a 14-year-old.
That's a bit much, but I mean, good on him for doing it though, right?
Yep, absolutely. So I think a lot of people put in their submissions, and I think We are going to be posting ours up on the website. But I think you can go on there and you can read some of the submissions on there. So if you're at all interested, feel free to jump in. And
I've created a précis of ours at this point, so we don't have to go through the multiple pages.
Yeah. So we'll post that up on the website here shortly, and that'll be available for review. Feel free to give feedback, as with everything else. So I think with that, we are at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So I think I will call it, unless anybody has anything else.
Other than let's discuss making a what are they called when you have a little group of people that do things together?
A Chautauqua?
Yes, we need a Chautauqua for the.
How do you spell that?
Chautauqua. I'm sure there's a Q in there. At least it sounds like it.
It's a meeting of learned people.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah,
so I'm out.
I want to be on the Chautauqua for the emergency rescue people guy.
Okay. Excellent.
SATQU what, babe? SHITQU something. I don't know.
No, it's not SH.
He's on the couch. He's on the couch on the other side.
Tell him we liked his safety comment, and he can just go back to sleep.
I've got the speaker on loud. He can hear you. Tell me, babe.
Excellent. Excellent.
That's funny. All right. I think that's all we did. I have yet to post it, but we did get a new designed t-shirt in the store. If anybody's interested in a t-shirt, it's a distress t-shirt, so check that out if you want to see that. And beyond that, I think that's it.
I have a couple more I'm going to throw in a few days too. I'm not quite done with them yet.
Okay. Awesome.
Excellent.
All right. Well, on that note, have a good night, y'all. Thank you for participating, and we'll see you next week. All right.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you.
Night,
good discussion.
And that concludes tonight's episode. Good night. Bye-bye.
That was a
Bye
neat little voice shift there. I like it.
Bye now. Bye-bye. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.